Welcome everyone. Welcome to Student Success in Action, how multiple institutions approach student success through structured mentorship programs. Kick it off to our host for today, Maria, our VP of Customer Success.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Maria Fosbach, and I'm the Vice President of Customer Success here at Mentor Collective. And I am excited to moderate today's session. This session brings together leaders from several institutions who are approaching students' success through a shared lens, peer mentorship as a structured strategy for connection, belonging, and persistence. Across higher education right now, student affairs leaders are navigating some significant pressures. Institutions are facing enrollment challenges, staffing shortages, and increasing expectations to demonstrate measurable impact on student outcomes. In that environment, mentorship has become more than a nice to have. It's increasingly recognized as a high impact practice that strengthens retention, builds social capital, and improves students' sense of belonging. Today's conversation will focus on how institutions are using structured peer mentorship programs not only to support individual students, but also to scale human connection across campus. Before we dive into the discussion, I would love to introduce our panelists today, and we'll start with Dr. Johnson.
So good afternoon. I am Dr. Rushton Johnson, and I currently serve as the Vice President of Student Affairs at Pellissippi State Community College in Knoxville, Tennessee, where we are, by enrollment, the largest community college in the state, approximately 9,500 students or so. And I'm glad to be with you today.
Now we're going to move on to Dr. Morgan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Dr. Tobias Morgan. I serve as the Vice President of Student Affairs at Lincoln University of Missouri, and I'm honored to be here today as well.
And last but not least, Dr. Clement.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Shireen Clement. I am the Director for Mentorship and Student Engagement at Augusta University, which is in Augusta, Georgia, famous for the Masters Tournament, which is happening next week here.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here today. So before we just start the panel conversation, I just want to briefly level set on what we mean when we talk about peer mentorship and why it matters. Peer mentorship programs intentionally connect students with trained peers who can help them navigate academic challenges, campus systems, and the broader college experience. Unlike traditional advising or support service, these relationships are rooted in a shared experience. Mentors are often students themselves who have recently navigated the same transition points and can offer guidance that feels accessible and relatable. These programs are powerful because they address something that research consistently identifies as one of the strongest predictors of students' persistence, a sense of belonging. When students feel connected to people, resources, and to their campus community, they are far more likely to stay engaged and continue their education. Mentorship also builds what many scholars call social capital, the networks, knowledge, and informal guidance that help students understand how systems work and how to take advantage of opportunities that might otherwise remain invisible. However, mentorship is most effective when it's not left to chance. A culture of mentorship means moving beyond informal relationships and designing programs intentionally. That includes recruiting and training mentors, matching mentors and mentees thoughtfully, and creating structured communication touchpoints and collecting data that allows institutions to identify when students need additional support. When mentorship is designed this way, it becomes more than a program. It becomes the infrastructure that helps institutions reach students earlier, strengthen connection across campus, and extend the capacity of student affairs teams. Now, with that context in mind, let's begin the conversation by talking about how each institution has designed their mentorship programs in the first place. So, Dr. Clement, you lead several mentorship initiatives at Augusta University that support student populations, including first generation and underrepresented students. When you were designing these programs, how did you determine the right structure and scope? And what factors shape those decisions?
For sure. Thanks so much for the question. Um, so we run three overtly peer mentorship programs out of our office, and we have a fourth one where a program where peer mentorship is a strong component of it. And the design is very much guided by our university strategic plan and values. And they were all created kind of in a response to some specific student needs that we were seeing. When we look at underrepresented students, I think across the nation, we know there's different patterns with engagement and student success just because of institutional structures and differences. So really targeting those student populations was really important. But then also looking at research and seeing what does higher education research and best practice say are the important things that those students need. And you spoke to social capital. A lot of times underrepresented students, limited income students, first generation students, they have these very unique forms of social capital that they come to college with in their home communities. But how do we reconnect them here and create those in peer mentorship was the answer for us for that. Really looking for some of our programs are very small. They're very, I would say, like family oriented almost. And then we have some larger scale programs like Jags for Jags, which is our specific program run out of Mentor Collective. That's a little bit larger, and that's looking more at students who maybe they're stopping out or having different experiences because they have these questions they need answered and they don't know who their point person is, but they might not want to engage as much as maybe some other students who are in some of our smaller programs that have a lot more requirements. So really looking at our strategic plan, our university's missions, but then also looking at our student body and seeing like what things do they need to engage with and where they likely to be most successful, and then designing multiple programs so we can meet the students where they are.
Thank you so much. Dr. Morgan, I'm curious to get your perspective on this as well. Lincoln University has a strong focus on student engagement and leadership development. Excuse me. How did your institution think about structuring mentorship programs so that they support those priorities?
Yeah, so for us here at Lincoln, the structure and the scope of the program it was initially shaped by the Office of the President and through our leadership, our executive leadership. And so it was somewhat connected to our institutional priorities around student success. And so our president identified a critical need to improve first year retention and persistence, particularly around navigating transition from high school to college for first year students. So in response to that, the structure kind of reflects a commitment to early engagement, scalability, and then targeted support for students within the first year initially. Now we've kind of extended that to our second year students as well. But the decision was influenced by national trends in student success, internal retention data that we received, and then recognition of the students who build meaningful connections early are more likely to persist. And so we use that data to kind of formulate and develop the program here at Lincoln. We have two mentorship programs that we do here on campus. One through Mentor Collective, and another one that kind of was birthed through the Mentor Collective program as well, that includes our upperclassmen students.
Oh, that's great. Dr. Johnson, at Pellissippi State, you've been leading broader student success initiatives, including integrating career development into the first year experience. From a leadership perspective, how does mentorship into that larger strategy for helping students navigate college and prepare for their careers?
Certainly. Well, Pellissippi State has been involved in reforming our institution in earnest since about 2018 when we joined the Achieving the Dream Network. So we have been evolving and our strategies have been building and we've been expanding and scaling for a number of years now. And so as we endeavor to become what we call a career immersion college, we're infusing career development throughout student pathways. So they start day one, even before they enroll, talking about the end, right? So they begin with the end in mind. And so peer mentoring has helped to increase our capacity to do that work. So students who come to Pellissippi State, they have orientation leaders that are with them in the very beginning. And once they've been duly oriented to the college, those orientation leaders then become peer mentors. So they have this consistency in relationship that really goes directly to belonging. And the research is clear on belonging. When students feel that they belong, they are more likely to persist and complete their course of study. So in addition to the officially programmed activities around career development, A lot of the conversation that happens around career and futures happens between peers. So those peer-to-peer relationships and conversations then become increasingly important. And I think it adds depth to our strategy to ensure that students are really thinking about their lives and futures beyond Pellissippi State and are setting themselves up to land a career that has upward economic mobility, which is what we want for all students.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. I'm going to step in here for Maria. I think we have lost her, but that is okay. I can go ahead and continue. I think our next question here are what strategies do you use to recruit, select, and train peer mentors to ensure that they are effective in supporting your mentees? Dr. Morgan, I'd love to hear from you on this question. I'm going to go ahead and share it on the screen here as well. Let me go ahead and get it up. Let me see here. Can we see it here on the screen?
Yes, we
Excellent.
can.
Yeah. Love to hear from you.
Okay, so at Lincoln University, we rely heavily on the structured recruitment and matching process provided through the Mentor Collective platform. And so this incorporates assessments to ensure strong alignment between the mentors and the mentees. The assessments also help identify compatibility based on shared interests, experiences, student needs, career pathways, and ultimately setting the foundation for a meaningful connection through mentoring. And so in our Freshman Innovation Council mentorship program, that's where we have actual peer mentors associated as well. These are upperclassmen, most of the upperclassmen population has more of an emphasis on students who demonstrate leadership, accountability, and a genuine desire to support others. And so in addition to the platform preparation, our peer mentors participate in on-campus trainings that equip them with necessary skills to be effective in their roles while they're working with first and second year students.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Dr.
Mhm.
Johnson, I guess I'll kick it over to you, hear a little bit on your strategies that you've utilized.
Sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, the large majority of our peer mentors are selected from our orientation leaders. And so they take on those responsibilities with the clear opportunity to continue on with us throughout the year. So we have at Pellissippi State what we call the Student Leadership Institute. There's a common leadership curriculum that we provide for all students. And at the beginning of the year, student government, heads of clubs and organizations, and students that are in other key employment positions within the college are invited to participate. And so we have a common leadership curriculum, and then we also have breakout sessions that are germane to the roles that students have. And that's where the bulk of the training for our peer mentors takes place. We try to have a peer mentor team that's representative of our college demographic. So, for example, at Pellissippi State, we have traditional students that are coming to us directly out of high school, but we also have adult learners. So, we
Yeah.
want to be sure that we have first generation college students, students who are members of minoritized student populations, adult learners, so on and so forth, so that we are really providing the opportunity for there to be deep connection around shared experience, shared lived experience. So that's a little bit about how we go about selecting and staffing our peer mentors.
Yeah. Dr. Clement, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear all the diversity in the student population that all of you serve. Oh,
We also,
yep.
I would say, work through our university channels for our mentor recruitment, and then also in conjunction with the recruitment processes that Mentor Collective does with us, which I really appreciate those over the summer when students are a little bit less connected to campus and we do have predominantly like traditional undergrads that we're working with, having that additional ability to push out recruitment communication using Mentor Collective and submitting information to them has been really helpful. For our normal mentor recruitment, though, we do those very traditional models. We table, we go to their residence halls, we keep fun snacks. But one thing that we also really prioritize is for all of our mentorship programs, the idea that you're always recruiting mentors and mentees. So throughout
Hmm.
the year, if we're having events, if we're doing fun things, it's always someone's job on our duty schedule and the staff to be taking photos and taking videos and making sure we're putting them out there so that students are seeing what their peers are doing. every year we have like, I guess, a good chunk of freshmen who join one of these mentorship programs. There's always a few who saw and did not join. And we want to make sure those students they don't get through the whole first semester without reaching out and saying, oh, wait, I want to be a mentor. I saw how much fun you're having. They're also getting these really great benefits that I don't think they're recognizing at the time always, but making sure that we are showing how engaging and how transformational the program can be to these freshmen who then maybe will serve as mentors. One thing that we're just very lucky with, though, with our programs, across all of them, they have started to become very self-sustaining. So a lot of the students who become mentees or take on that role want to serve as mentors the next year. So I know my first year in the office when I was assistant director, mentor recruitment it took up my whole spring. And now we do mentor recruitment and 80 to 85% of the students are returning as mentors or mentees who want to become mentors. So I think if you really structure that appropriately in early years, in 3 to 4 years, you have this kind of self-sustaining program and you're able to focus on either your training, how you're developing. One thing we're really focusing on is like further professionalization of these students because we're able to yield time to that now in a different way.
Yeah. Maria, I'm going to kick it off to you. And I'll move to the next
Apologies.
slide.
Uh, I apologize for that. I was not prepared for my Wi-Fi to just shut down and crash. So that took a couple minutes, but appreciate you guys just keeping it going. So I believe we're on what specific outcomes have you? Great. Awesome. So Dr. Clement, you work closely with programs that focus on helping students transition into the university experience. So, what outcomes have you observed as a result of peer mentorship, whether that's persistence, engagement with campus resources, or overall student success?
Yes. So I'd say all of the above. One thing I'm always really proud of to look at the end of the year is those retention rates in comparison to students who are not involved with any mentorship programs in their first year. And we have consistently, since I came into this office, so in 2022, till now, had higher retention, higher GPA, higher credit completion when compared to their uninvolved peers. One thing that I think is really exciting, though, is our student engagement. The university I work for tracks student engagement. I think most universities track it, but we have some very, very explicit goals about what we want our first year students to do, regardless of if they're in a mentorship program or not, to increase their retention, right? We want them to go to 5 events on campus at least. We want them to join at least one registered student organization. And then as they progress out of their first year, to become a leader in some capacity on campus through one of our campus leadership initiatives. And in the last 2 years, 100% of our first year students have met those engagement goals in our mentorship programs. And that is something I'm really proud of. I think that holistic student success, I think in the right spheres is talked about a lot, right? We don't only talk about retention, graduation, persistence, but sometimes the other parts of college, which are so important, are left out. And so seeing that the students in our programs are engaging across campus and having a well-rounded experience is extremely important to me. It's important to our university, but I think it's one of the best byproducts to see of how our students are engaging in the programs.
That's great. Was there anything specifically that was like a surprise discovery or the results surprised you in any way?
Yes, I'm trying to think of probably a lot of things. One thing, and it's so funny. I've mentioned this at NASPA, but I also have more information about it even now, and it's how we really work to recruit mentees and to students. We had a listening session, and students were talking about how they heard about mentorship programs on Monday. And there's funny, it's such a divide between whether or not students read their emails. Some students were like, you told us so much, I was going to block you. And some students were like, I've never heard of these. So we're trying to find the middle ground. But when we were polling students to figure out what's the best way to get them to engage in these programs, so many students said, like, I did it because my mom told me to. And I said, okay, that's great. And so before that, we had done so much of our recruitment emails to students, at orientation, really appealing to students. And after that, we changed our recruitment processes. So we still do some of the things that I think you would do anyway, but at orientation, we've always had a lunch and learn. We pivoted our lunch and learn to only be for parents. So we have parent and student programming at our orientation. And so, I said, like, if your mom is going to be the one who gets you to do it, I'll talk to your mom. And so now we talk to everyone's mom. I had some students who had been in the program for many years and have become mentors. And I was able to work with those students to get their mom specifically to write emails. So parents get emails in our comms plan from other parents saying why they think their students should join this and what they saw as the development in their own students. And so that has been really effective. So really listening to your students about what they want out of the program. And that might be like what kind of events they want to have, what kind of contact they want to have with their mentor, and not only asking those questions, but then pivoting what you do. I think sometimes as student affairs practitioners, it's really easy to ask the questions when we know we're supposed to ask the questions, but we don't always action the results that students are giving us.
Right.
When you can action them and then communicate back to them that you changed something because of them, they're going to be more likely to want to continue to give you feedback. Whereas if you ask all the time and never do it, they're going to stop wanting to give you that feedback, or eagerly, they won't be eagerly giving you that feedback. So yeah, that's been being able to really use the students as a sounding board has been really effective for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, moving on to our next question. Um, Dr. Johnson, we often hear that a student's sense of belonging is one of the strongest predictors of retention. From your perspective, how have mentorship programs helped strengthen that sense of belonging for students, and how do you know those efforts are working? Oh, I believe you're on mute, Dr. Johnson.
All right, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. So I'll say we have about 39 mentors that we've matched with about 1,400 students. And because of the utility of the platform, we know that about 4,500 mentoring conversations occurred over the fall semester. And so that represents about 23,000 peer-to-peer messages exchanged between mentors and mentees. And so we
Mhm.
know that there's quality interaction that's happening. And so, in terms of impact, what we're seeing is very strong and positive correlation with academic outcomes. So, students who have three or more mentoring conversations on average have about a 2.55 GPA, as opposed to students who don't have any, coming in at about a 2.1. And
Mhm.
we see that about 74% of students that participate in the peer mentoring program, which we call Panther to Panther. Panther is our mascot. About 74% are persisting from term to term. So that's encouraging results for us, a strong and positive correlation. And so we see that out of these peer mentoring conversations are emerging um, issues that students have, where our mentors are then able to make a referral to a service provider for intervention. And so that's a level of a connection and contact with students about their challenges that we otherwise just simply would not have.
Mhm.
And so that's what we're seeing in terms of impact in peer mentoring, that really is it's increasing our capacity to do the work. So it's been a real value add for us.
Awesome. Thank you. So, of course, building these programs rarely happen without some sort of challenge along the way, which kind of leads me to my next question for you guys. Dr. Morgan, mentorship sounds powerful in theory, but implementing or expanding these programs can come with some real challenges. What obstacles have you encountered while building or scaling mentorship at Lincoln University?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. So we started our program 2 years ago. We're actually in cohort two and in preparation recruiting for our third cohort beginning this fall. Um, but initial challenges that we encountered was gaining student buy-in and consistent engagement with the program. So when we first introduced the program to the university community, we didn't really get a lot of hits from our students wanting to sign up and participate. And
Mhm.
so some of the students didn't fully understand the value of mentorship and were hesitant to just participate at all. And then
Right.
also on the flip side of that, when you look at when we were trying to engage our alumni to serve as mentors, they didn't really understand mentorship and what the program entailed, their time as far as being a mentor, what that would look like. And so having to have those early informationals, provide data sheets, social media posts, just to really encourage our students and our alumni to really participate and fully engage with the program. And so we addressed some of these challenges by enhancing early communication during the enrollment process. And so we've partnered with our enrollment management team, specifically with admissions, through early intervention. So when students are beginning to receive communications, once they've committed to the institution, we're a part of those communications that the students receive while they're transitioning from high school to the university. And so we send communication to the students. We also share communication with the parents. And so we found that when the parents are notified of the support services that we offer on campus, the students are more inclined to participate or click the link to see what it's about, or even register and sign up to participate to become to receive a mentor. And so that has really helped us a lot to overcome some of those initial challenges that we faced. And so our numbers drastically increased when we started streamlining communication to our parents
Mhm.
initially. And so that's something that worked for us. And so we're going to continue to use those methods and work alongside our campus partners in enrollment management as well.
Great, great. Dr. Clement, you've kind of touched on this already, but you also manage multiple mentorship initiatives, and I imagine you've encountered similar challenges to what Dr. Morgan mentioned. What lessons have you learned as your programs have grown?
Oh, so many. I feel like they're all every day you learn a lesson. Uh, Specific to Jags for Jags, and I guess I should have said this earlier, Dr. Ocean, you made me think our mascot is the Jaguars. That's why we're Jags for Jags for one of our programs. And the first year that we implemented that program through Mentor Collective, Augusta University has a medical school and a dental school within our university, and we're the only public medical school until August. Georgia's getting a second public medical school and the only dental school. And so a lot of undergraduates come here and they are very excited. That is their career goal, right? They want to proceed into a professional school. So the first year we did it, we really pushed and highlighted the mentorship to medical and dental students because so many of our students are like, I would say 40-50% of the class comes in cell and molecular biology undergrads. And that was so great for the very specific conversations about professional development, what I need to do to get into that, to even if it's not our medical school, medical school. But what we realized in looking through the conversations, the topics, the flags that came up is that the majority of the questions were like, wait, how do I find out where my advisor is? And wait, is this academic success center the same as the one on this campus? And as it turns out, the majority of our medical students didn't do undergrad here. So they're like, oh, I don't know. I'll have to ask someone. And although we provided resources, the gap in understanding and the gap in experience was there. And obviously, one thing that makes peer mentorship effective is you're talking to someone who just had that experience. Even if they're a senior, they are very close to the experience of what it felt like to be in their first year. And they have a context for these services, the leaders on campus, what they should do. So we had to pivot after that first year. While there are still medical and dental students who serve as mentors in our program, and graduate students as well, that okay, our primary recruitment strategy cannot be to mentors in the professional schools, right? In the professional programs, we have to look at that. Right now, we've been doing a lot of pivoting with our programming for Jags for Jags.
Mhm.
That program does not have required engagement with like going to socials, going to community building events, whereas our other mentorship programs do. And we always say for them, required means required. They signed an agreement saying they're not going to miss anything. And there's so many touch points. So if they do miss something, we are able to follow up. So really trying to figure out, okay, what do the students who signed up for Jags want? Because
Mhm.
obviously they had three options to apply for or sign up for, and they could see most of the students. Even sometimes I'm talking to students at orientation or their families, and I'm explaining one of the programs, maybe like our multicultural mentorship program. Again, very high level of engagement required, and I can see their faces kind of like, oh no, 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 that's not for me. Maybe I'm more introverted. Maybe I just don't want to leap into that first. And so those students usually would tend to do Jags for Jags because that feels like a little calmer. You have a point person, but we still want to see them. So we've been really working to change out the way we do engagement, and not just resting on the laurels of what we've seen work with other programs. So
Right.
we've been requesting student feedback. We had like a come by the office, tell us what you like, we'll give you a free shirt. We did a paint night recently, and that was like our highest turnout ever. And they were just quietly painting. We got them cinnamon rolls, and that's like not what we would have done for the other programs. So really, I think looking at that, and I think I've said this so many times, but it really is when you realize there's like a deficit or an issue, getting the feedback and then actioning it as soon as possible. Um, and that way you know, okay, I made this minor tweak, that's effective. This other thing wasn't. And you continue to make those tweaks to get to the point where your program works. But also,
Right.
every 4 years, the whole school refreshes. Hopefully, every 5 years, maybe. So you want to make sure that you're also always asking for that feedback and you make it a part of your program plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Fully agree with that. Well, many of the people attending here today are probably thinking about how they could build something similar on their campus. And so for this next question, I'd love to open it all up to all three of you. For institutions that would like to launch or even expand a mentorship program, but might have limited staff or resources, what advice would you give about getting started and building something that can grow sustainably? And we'll start with you, Dr. Johnson.
Sure. Well, at Pellissippi State, you've heard me reference the fact that our student orientation leaders really serve as the anchor for our peer mentoring workforce, if you will. So my suggestion would be to start perhaps with positions that you already have and think about ways that you could expand the responsibilities of that position to include peer mentoring. Now, at Pellissippi State, we're fortunate enough to have what we call the Student Employment Program, and those are money set aside for campus-based student jobs apart from federal work study.
Mhm.
So that's a resource that we have access to. But even if you don't have access to designated monies, I would say look at existing positions that you have and start with a group of students that you believe could most benefit from mentoring as part of your data case building for the scale and expansion of it. And that's really what we did at Pellissippi State. We now have included, in addition to first year entering students, we also have students who may be in academic recovery. So if a student for any reason did not make satisfactory academic progress uh, per the college's policy, not financial aid,
Mhm.
then students must have an academic improvement plan. And we have peer mentoring with that to ensure that students have the highest probability of getting on track and making progress towards completion. So that's a little of advice I would give you. You don't have to start from ground zero. Look at capacities that you have that could be expanded and start with a targeted group of students that you think could best benefit from peer mentoring as part of your data case building for expansion.
Dr. Morgan, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Dr. Johnson. For us here at Lincoln, I think we just kind of hit the ground running when the program first started here at the university. It was a kind of a directive from our president. And so some learning lessons that we learned in the first year, or not even the first year, kind of the first semester of having the program here, was collaboration. I think that's like a key to having a successful mentoring program. Something that, I myself did not realize in the onset, just kind of working from my division alone and working from my team. You need your campus partners to have a successful mentorship program because it takes multiple areas of the campus from academic affairs, university college, athletics. It just takes everyone to kind of get this running and have a strong system. And so heavily relying on, so for instance, when Dr. Johnson mentioned those students who may be in academic recovery, that's when you need to be able to pull in your case management team and your academic advisors. And so having those early meetings and allowing everyone to understand from the onset what this entails, the work that we're going to have to do, and the heavy lifting that it involves, having everyone working as a team together can ease a lot of those tensions that you may come across along the way. So just remembering that in the back of your mind that collaboration is definitely key to moving this program towards success.
Oh, I think we may have lost Maria again. I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. Oh, I think she's back.
I'm
Maria,
back.
I'll kick it back to you.
I was saying what you were, sorry, I was on mute. I was going to kick it over to you, Christine, for the poll that you were about to start, and let you explain that.
Yes, I'm going to be launching a poll here. I'd love to hear from everybody, but then after this, we're going to kick it off to the audience here to see if they have any questions. All right, I'm going to launch that poll right now. Wish we had some music during this time. We're about halfway done here. And while we're waiting on this poll, you could think of some questions as well that you have for our panelist here.
I know a lot of great questions have been coming up in the chat, so.
Yeah. All right, I'll give it another 15 seconds. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. Thank you, everyone who has answered it. And I'm going to get it back to Maria.
Awesome. All right, so feel free to drop any questions in the chat box or the Q&A box. Um, One question I have is actually for you, Dr. Johnson. You mentioned that you've secured funding to shift toward a career immersion model. And how does structured peer mentorship serve as the connective tissue between the academic pathways and the actual workforce readiness that community college students demand?
Well, we were awarded a Title III grant, Strengthening Institutions Program grant. And in that grant, one of the activities is career development. And we wrote into that grant that we would use funding to become a part of the Mentor Collective. So that's, one of the ways that I would recommend to my colleagues joining us on maybe securing funding. And then we also have what, I referenced earlier, the Student Employment Program, and that provides money to compensate our peer mentors. And so we are infusing career development, across all pathways. And so it's not at the end of a student's pathway that we start talking about careers. We start talking about it even before students come to the college. So students take the youth science assessment tool that assesses their interest and aptitudes, and conversations begin early on with program alignment. So students are making informed choices. And so many of the conversations that are happening in onboarding are around that program choice and future careers. In fact, as part of onboarding, we have now what we call the Career Carnival, where we invite employers that align with our program pathways to come out and be a part of what's typically been sort of a fun activity day where students can connect with each other. But before they get to the fun part of that day or that activity, they have to go through an employer gauntlet where they have to show on their little passport that they have talked to at least two or three employers. So our peer mentors are trained in, what our onboarding process is like and conversations that should be had. And so they are actively engaging with students around what is the focus of that portion of their life cycle. So that's really some of the connective tissue that happens between academic affairs, student affairs, program choices, careers, the entire ecosystem. They really do begin with the end in mind.
Great, thank you. We do have a question from Steve, who is asking, what do you recommend for smaller two-year community college of 5,000 students or less that serve populations from dual enrollment and early college all the way through growing focus on adult learners 25 plus with life job realities?
Well, I would suggest um, you might want to choose a focus area. So where might you start? Because it's a challenge sometimes to do everything all at once. So where might you get the highest return on the investment in the program? So you may look at your data and find opportunity for one population more than another and start there. But however you go about it, I think you need to have representation, because representation really does matter. Because when students see themselves in other students and see that they are succeeding and doing well at the college, I think that helps with their sense of belief that they can succeed and therefore belonging. So again, if you have an existing student leadership structure, or if you have positions at your college where students are already engaged, that might be possibility for expanding and including dual enrollment as part of that. I think that might be fertile ground to start. But I would say in any case, choose a focus area, start there, make sure that you have representative students that look like them doing the peer mentoring, and position the marketing and advertisement of the opportunity early on in the process. So it has to be something that you put forward as students are coming into the ecosystem of the institution. And certainly, as my colleagues have referenced, also communicate with families about the opportunity and the benefits of peer mentoring, because they are many, they are aplenty.
That is correct. Dr. Clement, I'm going to have you answer this next question, and it relates to training mentors. What do you do to train the mentors, and how long, as in how many hours, does it take to train them up?
Yeah, of course. So we have different models for that. So, mentors and JAGs for JAGs are trained using the training modules that are located in the system. So, when a student applies to be a JAGs for JAGs mentor, there's a lot of steps before they are officially matched. And some of that is internal training, and some of that is pre-built, but we're also able to specialize and added certain information there. So, that is really helpful. And that's a little bit more hands-off in our office. In our other programs, there's two models. Students who are selected as mentors are encouraged to enroll in the leadership certificate at Augusta University. That is like a course-based leadership certificate that ends up on your diploma, on your transcript. And so students who become mentors, we encourage them to take the first leadership course and then to progress through that, through their involvement in the program, they would easily be able to get the full certificate. Our staff teaches courses in that program, so students can take it directly with us, and our focus is on leadership development and specifically through mentorship. So like when I came right over here, I was teaching a leadership course to some mentees who are about to become mentors. That if a student is a full-time student, that's not additional cost to them to register for those courses. There are some students who, because of their schedules and other reasons, cannot take those courses. So we do summer training sessions virtually with our assistant director to be able to hit on the really high points that are covered in that class. And that's leadership development, leadership style, effective communication, but we also talk about what does it mean to like lead your peers? What does it mean to understand? And we don't teach them like theory classes, I guess, but we talk about community cultural wealth. We talk about hidden curriculum and how you can be aware of those and how that can make you a better mentor. But we also then talk about like campus resources, because even if you're a sophomore, I don't know, I made it through all of college. I never went to the writing center. I knew it was there. I couldn't have told you anything about it. So maybe we have students in that situation. We make sure they're aware of those and can talk about them confidently. So some students are doing that over the summer, but we try to get most of them through that certificate course. And the really cool thing about that, as they progress through mentorship, there's internships through that course, there's service learning through that course, and a lot of them then do those projects within our office to improve upon our mentorship programs. So that is our training. And then one thing that I think is really important that some of my peers have touched on is the training doesn't stop as soon as they start their mentorship journey. So they have meetings monthly, twice a month, actually, one virtual, one in person. And usually the virtual one is a little bit more about professional development or wellness. And so either we bring in a speaker, we bring in alumni, we talk about how you can communicate your mentorship experience after you graduate and like how you can talk about the skills you're earning, how do you do time management, and that development doesn't stop. So if someone's in our program for 4 years, they're getting a lot of development and training as a mentor, but also just being a well-rounded leader.
Great, thank you. Dr. Morgan, I'm going to have you answer Arabella's question. So she writes, we used to assign mentors based on major, but found that was not efficient as most of the support needed wasn't specifically about the major. Now our peer mentors are assigned to first year FYE sections, which means matches aren't always based on shared interests or personalities. Since pairings are a bit random, what are some of the ways we can help mentors and mentees build stronger connections? And to further clarify, students are required to meet with their mentor 3 times a semester as an assignment for the class, so they receive credit for meeting with their mentor.
Yeah, that's a good question. So for our peer mentorship program where it's student to student, um, well, let me go back with the RU Mentor Collective program. Those students are matched through the system, so it's kind of an easier process through the assessment. They kind of put in what their interests are and career pathways and different things like that, and so do the mentors. So that match is pretty strong and good from the onset. With our peer mentorship program. That's similar to what you're speaking of in your question. And so for us, we do something similar to like a round robin activity, kind of like a speed dating activity. And so the students kind of go around and discuss similar interests. And then from there, we put them at like we call it circle talks at a table. And so those students who matched from the I guess the speed dating round will go to a table and kind of talk more about their specific interests that they align with through the speed dating round. And then from there, from the circle tables, they're able to identify a mentor that they will connect with throughout the year. And so for us here at Lincoln, they also have to have those 3 touch points throughout the semester. And then on to help facilitate with the mentors as far as their training, we meet with them once a month as well. And so throughout the semester, though, the mentee and the mentors, they receive a journal book at the beginning of each semester. And so they're required to journal every time they meet with their mentor. If they have a question in between those meetings with their mentors, they'll write that into their journal book. The mentors are required to keep a journal book because they kind of keep notes on what they discuss with their mentor. If they have an idea, if they went out for coffee or volunteered or did anything with their mentor, they keep track of that as well in their journals. And we go over that with the team as well when we meet with the mentors in our trainings. And then at the end of the academic year, we have like a dinner that kind of just ends out the program with the mentors and the mentees, and they discuss what their relationship look like. For our LU Mentor Collective, we started doing videos through our marketing team. That we post on the TVs around campus where the mentor and the mentee kind of talk about their relationship, their mentorship, and how that kind of facilitated and how they began their mentorship and what that looked like throughout the journey. And so that helped us as well with recruitment, one, and then also just facilitating what mentorship look like to gain a stronger mentorship between our peers.
Great. Thank you. That sounds amazing. I love the journaling idea.
Mhm.
Um, so I have one final question that I'd like all three of you guys to answer. So how do you see peer mentorship evolving in the next 5 years, particularly in response to changing student needs and higher education trends? Start with you, Dr. Clement.
Definitely. One thing I think is really important is that while peer mentorship has grown so much in popularity in higher education research, it's not research at the same rate as other high impact practices. I recently read an article as we get to I think it's the 10-year, maybe anniversary of kind of the influx of high impact practices being a conversation. And one of the recommendations is that peer mentorship be officially added as one of the high impact practices in higher education. And we know what it is and what it does, but that's not seen across the board. So I do see that happening and there being more of a scholarly lens around peer mentorship, which I think would again further professionalize the way it's approached and then have even more resources about best practices when it comes to designing, implementing peer mentorship programs. I also think peer mentorship becoming more and more aligned on individual campus in the student success narrative. When I got to my position in my office, we had our two peer mentorship programs. At that point, I think between both of them, there was like 30 students, 30 freshmen, and now that's blown up. Obviously, it's huge now. And when I came in, I kept trying to go to all the student success meetings. And I said, I want all these students tagged in banner. I want to look at their retention. And at the time, that wasn't a big conversation. And I was saying at the time, it was 4 years ago. And I bullied my way into all the student success meetings, now to a fault because I'm still required to go to so many of them. And I'm in the student engagement portfolio, but it's become a big part of the university success narrative. So when we publish our annual report, that's a huge metric. Like the students who are in mentorship programs, are we growing that? How are they retained when it wasn't a part of that narrative? So I think that's going to start happening nationally. But I also would encourage everyone here, if you're starting a program, ground yourself in the student success units in your campus, even if your office is not grounded there, because as your program is successful, because it will be, you want to make sure that you are able to be a part of that narrative, because that's again how you're going to be able to expand and scale your program, because everyone will be able to see the good work you're doing. It won't just be siloed in one department or one unit. So yeah, that's what I see happening.
Dr. Johnson, what are your thoughts?
No, I echo what my colleague has shared, and to that, I would add, I think peer mentoring is moving from a nice thing to do for students into just a core strategy. The research on belonging is clear, and we know that belonging happens sort of multidimensionally. It is about students seeing themselves as being able to succeed in the environment, but also having meaningful social connections. So I mean, it's clear that mentoring addresses what we now know matters to student success. Do I feel emotionally connected? Do I have those robust, meaningful relationships? And do I see myself as being able to succeed here? And so when you see yourself, an image of yourself represented in a person that is succeeding, that increases your confidence in your ability to also succeed. So it's moving from a nice thing to do to core strategy for students to succeed. So I would recommend pursuing peer mentorship as a core strategy in your endeavors to improve the likelihood that students would in fact succeed at your institutions.
Dr. Morgan, what would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I agree heavily with what my colleagues just shared. For us here at Lincoln, something that I believe I can see mentorship moving into would be cross-institutional mentorship. And so our senior vice president here at Lincoln, he's in the works now, working on a cross-institutional mentorship with our institution and a few other HBCUs. Um, the tagline earlier when they were mentioning JAGs. I started laughing because the premise of the program that he's starting is Lions, Tigers, and Bears, which is a play on all the institution's mascots that would be included in the cross-institutional mentorship program. And so I kind of see it going in that direction where we can kind of lean on each other to support more students than just with on the grounds of our respective institutions. So I think that's something that's going to take off in the next few years regarding mentorship and how we can service more students through multiple institutional resources.
Great, thank you. Well, that is all we had for questions today. But that doesn't mean we're done with webinars. We do have another webinar coming up on Monday, excuse me. It is a quarterly product roadmap webinar. I highly encourage you guys all to attend that. We have tons of great new features that are coming out and getting released. Some have already been released and some are coming over the next quarter. And I believe Anamik is excited to share that all with you guys.
Yeah, and without further ado, we are now done with this webinar. Thank you all so much. We are excited that you are with us today, and we'd love to see you at our next webinar. Keep the questions coming. You can always put them in the chat here. But other than that, we're ending. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.